Hello.
Hello.
So I'm surprising Amy because she doesn't know what we're going to talk about, but I was just thinking in the car on the way here, I feel like I did myself a bit of a disservice, or you guys a disservice in like the last episode.
Why?
Which was the Chasing the Liar one.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that at all for a long time, and I'm very happy with it, and I still am, because I like the way everything unfolds.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm like, oh no, I regret that. It's just made me think, and I'm going to backtrack and explain myself.
Yeah.
So have you watched MAID on Netflix?
No, I haven't, but I am going to. But yeah,
Yes.
I haven't yet.
So for anybody who doesn't know, MAID, MAID, is on Netflix at the minute, and it's about a woman who has a young daughter, and she sort of moves away from a domestic violence situation. Yeah. And I've started watching it, and it's really good, really interesting, like most things on Netflix are.
Yeah.
And I've been loving it, getting into it, you know, and I really buy into the storyline, having been a woman who left a partner when my daughter was young. I relate. You know, but it hasn't been like impacting me greatly or anything like that, because obviously I'm very healed and very strong. But I sat there and I was watching it, totally fine. And she gets referred to a domestic violence shelter. But she's like, I don't need to go there. Like, I don't feel like I should go there when someone could have that place who suffered real abuse.
Yeah.
And the woman was like, what do you mean real abuse? And she said, you know, like, I've been hit. And she was like, okay, well, what does fake abuse look like?
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, like controlling the money, like emotion. And she does these little flashbacks and like having things thrown at her, or like being shouted at.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, in her head, she can't connect the two.
Yeah.
Because in their state in America, emotional abuse isn't considered domestic abuse.
Yeah.
But there's a domestic violence shelter in that state that houses any level of abuse.
Yeah.
And that's where she was referred to. But anyway, the bit that I responded to, she's driven there because she's got no money, and she's got her daughter in the car seat. It makes me go like funny, like I have a real like physical response to it. There's this woman there. Oh my God, like I can't cope with it. There's this woman, she's like an older lady, and she has clearly been in the situation before, and she works at the shelter. Yeah. And she opens the car door, and she says to her, you can breathe now, baby girl. We do a lot of breathing here. Yes, we do. And I fucking fell apart. Like, even now, it makes me so emotional. Like, I just got so upset by that. And I don't know, I do know why, but at the time I was totally like shocked by how I felt. Yeah. And I sobbed like for such a long time. And I was like, that's it, isn't it? That is it. That inability to breathe is it. And that lack of safety to breathe, because the fear is so real. And I honestly, it shocked me as much as it probably shocked everyone that I felt like that. And I really had to think on it, because it was a really like, it came from absolutely nowhere. I was sitting there enjoying my night. Nothing triggering has happened to me for a long time, and I just feel like all of that, like that episode, it was so light-hearted, and so like it came from a place of healedness. Yeah. I can laugh at that now. I can. Yeah. That wasn't fake. This is what I'm trying to say. I wasn't pretending. I do feel like that. I went round to his flat, I was saying to you, literally a couple of weeks ago, went to his flat because she wanted me to see her bed and her Christmas present. Went in, we had a right laugh. He showed me all photos he's put up of her, and it's lovely. And I felt proud. I said, "Oh, Dan, you're such a lovely bedroom." And we had a nice little visit. That's my reality now.
Yeah.
But I felt like I'd done the whole experience, the journey, a disservice by coming at it solely from where I am now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does make sense. Yeah.
And that moment is what reminded me. It was like a fucking slap in the face of realness.
Yeah.
Of like, you haven't been here this long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm going to fall apart again or it's all going to go wrong again, but the reality is I felt completely unsafe for years. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship, and it's really hard for me to admit that.
Yeah.
I was like her.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah.
And I told that story about how he came in and whispered in my ear,
Yeah.
"I'll have you arrested." He threatened me in my bed in the dark when I was trying to go to sleep. He threatened me with my worst fear.
Yeah.
That's emotional abuse.
Yep.
He used to threaten me regularly with things that he would do. I'm going to leave the key in the lock, so I'm going to pick her up, leave the key in the lock, so when you get home from work, you can't get in and see her if you don't answer your phone when I'm at work. I'm going to ring the nursery and take your mum and your sister's names off of the list of people who can pick her up, and they were my childcare. If you don't X, Y, and Z. Threat, 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 threat. He would come in, because we didn't have locks on any of the doors, when I still lived with him, and I would go into the bath and cry, and he would walk into the bathroom whilst I was crying, completely naked in the bath, obviously, and he would start. He would choose those moments.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't do that to him.
Yeah.
So that wasn't okay. And I know that there was so much more, like years of more.
Yeah.
And part of me, I like the distance that I have between then and now.
Yeah.
It's what allows me to breathe.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But I know that that's because there's no way that you get emotional when it's not real.
The thing I found, because when I came out of my relationship, I felt to a certain level that I'd been abused, but because it wasn't physical, I didn't feel that I could say that. But I knew from, even though I didn't really recognise it at the time, I knew from the relief that I felt afterwards and the vulnerability that I felt that it was more than just a shitty relationship, because it's the mental, when you're being lied to constantly and gaslighted constantly and made to feel like you're insane. It's emotional abuse.
Yeah.
It is abuse.
Yeah.
And that's what, when I was kind of describing it as, and I've said before, it's like it would have been better if he hit me or had an affair, because then it's a justified reason. If it's just because he's been lying to you, it's like, well, people lie, you know, it's not really seen as a serious thing. But I used to say I felt like I had been in an abusive relationship, but I was in an abusive relationship, but it's very hard to admit that. But I still, and I think that's why sometimes I'll get more upset about other things than I should.
Because you haven't been acknowledged.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, every human being wants to be acknowledged. Like, no one has ever said to me, you were emotionally abused, and he would not accept that at all. All.
Yeah.
Like, that would be like absolutely outrageous.
Don't
and
be ridiculous.
I almost feel, because that's what I did in the last episode, I was justifying his behaviour so heavily and so happily, because that puts me in a position of strength. That puts me in a position of, I see him, I did that and he did that, and it's all fine now. And I'm like, on one level, that is true. I would never lie. I wouldn't lie knowingly. But I'm like, I haven't fully honoured myself. And people feel that.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
No.
Like, the fact that you're doing this now is you're being you, aren't you? So it just...
But yeah, that's what I mean. I just want to make videos that I'm proud of. And I am actually very proud of our 2 Chasing the Liar videos.
Yeah.
I am proud of them. I'm not going into like self-criticism mode or anything like that, because I do see that as just being a complete waste of time. I think actually it's a good thing that I have had that reflection, and I think that MAID moment, the sobbing, was an indication of something more that needed to be addressed. And so here we are. And I will always do that. But you always seem like you're just completely yourself. You don't change from being on to off camera, you know. And I think that's why I admire you. But yeah, because it is. I do really love that, and that I think most people do. Most people, you can see when there's something being hidden. You know, when you watch a video, maybe on YouTube or on Instagram or something, and people, you feel awkward, just a little bit, just a little bit. And you're like, oh, I just wish that you didn't feel so uncomfortable. I just wish that you weren't awkward and like going, oh, sorry, and it just makes me feel a bit. Oh,
RuPaul. Then they did the roast, the British one. Do you watch that?
I haven't watched the British one.
And the British one is funny.
I need to.
Funny. But they were saying about how when you're uncomfortable on stage, you make your audience feel uncomfortable. And that was always because I used to sing. Yeah. And I used to be so unbelievably uncomfortable. Oh. And I know that's what, I'm not a show person. That's not who I am.
She's got the voice. This is one of life's tragedies. If you'd have given my panache to Amy, you'd be a superstar.
We could do Milli Vanilli, couldn't we? I could stand behind the curtain and sing.
I could do some like...
do your pole. Brilliant. But yeah, it's that if you're not comfortable in yourself, you do make other people feel uncomfortable because they want to make sure that you're all right, you know.
Or it almost makes people annoyed, like, come on, back your ideas up. Yeah. I always just want to reach into the screen and give them a little virtual hug and go, just relax, just be who you are. Yeah. Because even if who you are is someone really laid back or someone a bit more jazz hands, we all, as human beings, we know whether it's authentic and genuine or not. And it makes us feel at ease. It's like Louis Spence. Yeah. Louis Spence is just Louis Spence, but he is just unreal as a personality. But it's consistent, and every time he speaks, I'm like, that is who you are. Love him or hate him. Yeah. Janet Street Porter, love her or hate her, that is who she is. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. Whereas sometimes there's like this mask, and I don't want to do that to you guys or to you. I feel like that's not the sort of relationships I want to have. Yeah. Where I don't, see that I made maybe a slight detour off of the path of truth. Yeah. And not say anything about it. We'll just let that slide and go by the wayside. I'll be like, I'm just going to admit and just talk about that extra bit because that's very real.
When someone criticises your partner or ex-partner, it's a reflection on your judgment, isn't it? Because you're the one that went with them, went with them for however long. Yeah. So I don't know if a part of you wanting to forgive them or protect them is also protecting yourself a bit because you don't really want to admit how bad it was. Or do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's almost part of it as well, but also the fact that I don't want to fully go in because I'm still scared. And I am very aware that I still have fear about the repercussions of things, and I don't know why, because when I know that I'm a bit scared, like today when he was late, I was sitting there thinking I'm going to have to do something, and it makes me fearful, but I don't know why, because what's he gonna do? Like, I don't know why I'm still so scared, but I'm not, but I am. Do you know what I mean? And I know that, I suppose that is just time, isn't it, that you just get over that and you realise, and thinking about it and working on yourself and whatever else, but it just takes time.
No, I haven't got that anymore, but I had that for a really, really long time. But then I've put a lot more steps in place, and so I've tested the water a lot more than you have.
Yeah.
You're new in the game of setting up your fences
Yeah.
and standing your ground. So I felt exactly the same as you at the start. And with that, if you were going to start implementing boundaries with an ex-partner, co-parenting situation, you just put a little fence up first of all, but you hold that fence with all your might.
Yeah.
You know that it's not going to be a big deal. You know, like it's not going to be like, oh, if you do that, we're going to end up in court. But you just have to. Mine was, you're not coming in my house.
Yeah.
Don't set foot in it. And the other day, he put his foot in the house, and I said, get your foot out. And he was like, oh, like that. But he was doing it to block me from closing the door because he was carrying on.
Yeah.
And so if he starts carrying on, I close the door.
Yeah.
And he put his foot in the door, and I went, get your foot out the door, and then I closed the door. But he knows that that is a boundary, and that.
Yeah.
But that was my first boundary. I don't need to call the police. I don't need to have a fight with him. But you're not welcome in my home because you shout at me when I'm trying to feed my baby.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. That took about a year to get the courage up to do, and then I was terrified. I told you, didn't I? My sister used to write me scripts.
Yes. Yeah.
And I used to try and memorise them so then I could say them verbatim because I didn't even trust that I would have the words myself.
Yeah.
And I would be like, if you, and he would laugh at me because I was like absolutely rattling, terrified. But you're not to come in. Like, no, I don't want. Yeah, well, I'm just going to come in for a minute, and I just say, well, it's my daughter at the end of the day, and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, just don't come in too far. Like now, it's just like get out.
Yeah.
You know, but you have to test it. And then you have to hold it with all your might. And then when they actually go, fine, you're like, I won. I did it. I said no, don't. And then it didn't happen. And it blows your mind. You're like, I've got some power. I did that. I can't believe it. Never ever once have I been able to say, can you leave the bathroom? I'm trying to cry in the bath naked, and you're in here talking to me about how you're going to take me to court and take my child away from me. I'm naked. You need a boundary, but then when you put it up, you hold it up, and then you can put up a bigger boundary, and then you know you've got faith in yourself. But the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people feel the fear. They feel the same way you do, but they do it anyway.
Yeah.
They do it anyway, and that is the hardest part. I feel terrified. Like, we all seem to think that she put her boundary up, Nikki put her boundary up, but she's different to me. She's stronger than me. She obviously doesn't feel the way that I felt, or I feel, and that's not the case. I was terrified. I was absolutely like nervous wreck, like red neck, shaking. And everything, because I thought I've got to go into a head-to-head battle with this man who's volatile, scary. He's got my baby in his arms, and I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then I'd have to go to war, and I had a spoon and a yogurt pot to bang, like nothing. But you'd be surprised how much, if you really mean something, and I did not want him in my home anymore, never again. And I meant it, and I put that up, and it's stuck. And so now I've put up more and more and more over time.
Yeah.
They've all stuck. I've had to put my shoulder in a few times. Some of them have, whoa, and I'm like, no! But it builds your strength up. The more you do it, the more courage you get. And the more courage you get, the more strong you feel. And that's a great thing. Yeah. But you don't want to start building boundaries up around your heart with everyone. Yeah. Because, you get very defensive, and you block yourself in behind all your fences because you feel you need them to be safe. That made me feel safe, and then it's like you end up on your own. Yeah. So you've got to, it's a real minefield of learning and growing and staying available for real love, but knowing what's toxic and knowing that you don't tolerate that. Yeah. If anybody wants to go down the toxic road, there's manholes everywhere. If they want to come down the kind-hearted road, it's a lovely, smooth sailing. Because we do one thing one way, we do everything that way. So it's like block. I did the same thing. I was a little island in the middle of all my iron fences with barbed wire over the top. And I started with them all up, and then I had to start knocking some of them back down again because they were too extreme.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of learning, but yeah, I mean,
life is learning.
Yes.
We're always learning, aren't we? We're always learning and growing and changing and
changes. I hope I didn't do a Debbie Downer for this one, because I'm aware that I nearly burst into tears at the start. But
you didn't.
I didn't. That's fine if I did. I did cry a lot the other day, but there we have it. Like that. I just wanted to be truthful with you guys, because you deserve it, because you spend time watching our videos and you need to hear the truth about what's going on with us.
Yes.
And I hope that you got something out of it. Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Yes, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Bye.